Well, with Lowry dead, the season is finally moving for the Rayburns. This is anything but a good situation since secrets are finally coming out and shit is definitely about to go down. Hey guys, Cameron for Bloodline, Season 2, Episode 5, Part 18. I was definitely looking forward to this episode. You know, the last episode really gave me more hope for this season. I loved the last episode. I thought it was a great journey into, you know, John Rayburn's mind and seeing exactly what was going on with him. And also just seeing how much John was losing it. And while last week's episode, you know, not last week, I mean the last episode was more of, you know, concluding some storylines. This episode began a lot of storylines. And I will say, I think this episode was just a bit overstuffed, definitely. There was a lot going on this episode. There was a lot happening, some of which I didn't exactly care about. I definitely will say that. There was some stuff going on here that I didn't really care about. Not bad, just some stuff I didn't exactly care about, but for the most part, I really enjoyed this episode. I think they gave a lot more for Ozzy and for Evangeline to do. We're definitely focusing more on them, but let's just get in this episode because there's a lot to talk about, and we start off with, and right away we had another very long episode, not as long as the last one, but definitely, you know, it was 62 minutes, but we open a flashback and we see Danny and Evangeline together, basically, and I like the way this was done, because, again, they're finding ways to keep Danny's presence in the show while not actually having him physically be alive, and it just, obviously, you know, they don't want to get rid of Ben Mendelsohn completely, so they're giving him a lot to do, and I like seeing that. Basically, he wants Nolan to see his new restaurant. She makes the very good point that Nolan is sick of Danny and his false promises, and Nolan wants to see his dad in his new role as a successful businessman, because, you know, he's not really successful, and Nolan just wants things to go well, and it makes sense, because we know how untrustworthy Danny really is, and it seems like he was the same around Nolan. Like, he really was not a good father, and basically, you know, Danny is smoking, says that they got all the family that God dumps on us, and, it's a really great scene. I really like the way that was done. I definitely like seeing that. And we see, basically, she's remembering this. She's stretching naked across the bed and eating pizza, and she's with Ozzy. And basically, the episode makes us think that her and Ozzy are together. And basically, Ozzy makes some noise about being worried about the kid being taken in by the Rayburns, but she's really not worried. And why? Because I think she thinks that they're just better for him, and, basically, you know, we see Ozzy raging out about past sins, start trashing the hotel, just like, he's really just going crazy here. He's trashing the hotel, he's talking about past sins, and she keeps saying, just look at me, look at me. Now, let me just say, she did look kind of hot naked, but we literally had 3 minutes of her stark naked, and she calms him right down, she tells him to trust her, and you can tell that he really does not trust the Rayburns right now, and it really does seem like Ozzy is going to become a problem for the family. Now, you don't know exactly in what capacity, but I feel like he is going to become a problem at some point. Well, let's see what happens there. I thought that was definitely a very good way to start the episode. But the main stuff going on in this episode, well, we do see a lot of, you know, Ozzy and Evangeline. The main stuff going on here had to do with, Meg and John and everything, and them trying to find a new suspect, obviously, for this case, basically. But Meg sits down with Belle and Kevin, explains the wheeling and dealing she has done to keep him out of jail, because obviously he just went to jail, but he got out of jail very quickly, and he knows that he needs to go to drug counseling. And I like that Kevin is actually trying to turn things around here, because I've said this before, I didn't talk about this with Feed the Beast, but one of the reasons I did not like that show is because of the fact that I'd rather see a character struggling and then try to get out of it than just see them continuously struggling and doing nothing about it. And it's just more interesting to see. I mean, who wants to watch a show about someone just continually going on a down spiral, not really doing anything to change it? And this episode, you can tell Kevin's really trying to kick that habit. He needs to go to drug counseling, he cannot mess up again. Belle is saying, you know, that he's not going to go. You know, she really doesn't think he's going to be able to. But I really like that at least he is trying to, you know, he's trying to give her this promise, but she just doesn't really know if she can trust him, and I thought that was really good, and it's really showing how untrustworthy Kevin is, just like how Danny is, and I think they did that really well, showing that Kevin is just as untrustworthy as Danny. Unfortunately, this isn't nearly as compelling as what's going on with Danny, because really the only reason Kevin's doing this, I think, is because of Danny's death, but it's really interesting overall, the way it was done, I definitely really did like, and I thought definitely it was one of the best parts about this episode. But then we didn't really care about, which had to do with Sally, because Sally in the last episode has some really good stuff with Evangeline. Here, not so much. She's having Bungalow 3 problems. She later yells at a guy on her mains crew who says she never called, and that's really strange, but I just didn't really care. I mean, I get that it's like Sally's kind of losing her mind, she's kind of distracted, but I just didn't really care that she's having these bungalow problems. I just didn't really care about that, because everything else I thought was so much more interesting that I just didn't really care. So, you know, other than that, though, I thought the episode was fine. Just Sally's stuff I didn't really care for. John then meets with some people about his campaign. There's a pushy lady and this other guy, and you don't know who these people are, but you also see the important part is that we learn that Roy Gilbert has reached out, and if you have Gilbert in your corner, you are in great shape. So Gilbert basically, I think he's basically going to represent John's campaign. We see a lot more of him later in the episode, which we'll get into, but basically it seems like as far as the campaign goes, things are in good hands. John's in good hands. It seems like, he has a very good chance of being mayor. My only problem this episode as well with John is that him and Diana never have that conversation. Diana obviously is very concerned about him. We never really see that in this episode. It focuses a lot more on John and not enough on, I think, him and Diana, which I'm sure it is eventually going to, but just this episode, it feels like we're kind of stepping back from that, and I don't really like that. I kind of want to see some more scenes. You can tell that Diana, while she is supporting him, she doesn't necessarily trust him. You can definitely tell, and I do like seeing that. But Kevin then goes to a support meeting, meets this guy named Doug, and Kevin is saying that he's just here because he has to be, and Doug is saying, oh yeah, sure. And after Belle picks him up, she has to be talked. He educates her on the terminology and then clams up because basically he's Kevin and all of his demons are on the inside. And I did like the way that scene was done. Again, I like seeing Kevin's actually trying to get help here. You can tell he doesn't really want it. His wife is forcing him to go to it, but I like that Belle really does want the best for him. That's one of the things I really liked, is that Belle is really, I'm really enjoying her character because she really does love him. She really does want the best for him, and really, she just really wants to help him. And she's one that I've heard a lot of people say she's one of the truly good people in this show, and yeah, that's true. I mean, all the other characters, they're very shady, they have all these agendas, and she really is one of the truly good people. So, current Sheriff Aguirre holds a press conference, and the long story of it is that he makes a huge point saying Danny's case is not closed, and they won't stop till they find Danny's killer. And John can tell this is not great, because they need to find a new suspect, obviously, because basically, now that Lowry's dead, he can no longer be, he's no longer the prime suspect in killing Danny, because he's dead, obviously, so they can't really use Lowry anymore, so they have to use someone else, and really the question is, who are they going to use? We don't really know. I think that's really interesting overall, because John really does not know what to do here, and obviously he's very conflicted, so he fills Kevin and Megan what's going on, and it becomes clear that Aguirre is doing this to help his campaign. That's why this is happening, because we know that Aguirre is running against John, and he's keeping John's deadbeat drug-dealing brother fresh in everyone's mind. Maggie's saying that he should just drop out. That might be the best thing to do, which really does make sense. I mean, obviously Aguirre's really trying to ruin things for John, and because of the fact that they can't find another suspect, it might be really bad for them, and John's still not telling him everything, tells him he needs to think, and the fact that he's not telling him everything, he's being really stubborn, but you kind of understand why. He kind of just wants to keep them out of it, and again, like I said, I think John personally wants to put himself through this pain. He wants himself, he's punishing himself, he really is, he's punishing himself, and that's something you really do see here, and I really did enjoy the way that was done. So, really, really interesting stuff, and that's something I definitely really enjoyed. So Sally's with Belle, who is getting some tests regarding the baby, and Belle wants to know if Sally and Kevin have talked, and Sally basically says, that she has and everything, and it's not really a big deal, and Belle is saying that this kind of behavior is why her kids are such wrecks, and really, yeah, I mean, the point of Sally, one of the reasons that Danny was so fucked up is because Sally didn't talk to all her kids. She kind of wants them to figure things out on their own, and Kevin needs her support. Sally is saying, let's not turn this into a drama, and, I mean, already things are really dramatic, so really her saying that, I mean, this scene in general, I get what she's trying to say, that this is Sally's fault, but it's definitely not all Sally's fault. I mean, the fact that they haven't told their mother is a big reason as to why they're not really talking. It's a perfect example of that. So John then goes creeping through the evidence room, searching for the smoking gun, aka the blackmail tape that Danny made, because obviously that's a real problem, and Kevin's been working out, because it says straight out that Lowry is innocent, and Kevin's been working out on the docks, he's feeling sober, and maybe not so thrilled about it, and maybe he just saw Nolan, basically, and we see a lot more with Nolan this episode. He actually wants a job, and we've known this since episode 3, he wants to get a job, and Kevin basically takes actually a really tough attitude with him, he gives him a bucket, tells him to white off birds, shit, and you can tell he really does not trust Nolan. I think he just doesn't really trust him. Nolan attitude's back. Kevin laughs at how strong DNA can be and how much he is like Danny, I think. So we flash back to a younger, less pierced and angry Nolan. He's with Danny in the restaurant kitchen, and even Danny isn't above trying to get a teenager to like him. He snarks at Danny. Danny snarks a little back to tease Nolan about being a virgin. And I like the way this scene was done, because he asks him if he's a virgin. Nolan's saying he's not, and Danny says, if you are a virgin, then you're allowed to have a beer, and it just shows that Danny really wasn't the best father. I think he tried, definitely. I think that's what this scene is showing, is that Danny definitely tried to connect with his son. He just wasn't really what I'd call a good father. He really wasn't. I mean, while he definitely tried to help him and he tried to be a good father, he just really wasn't that great of a father, you definitely see, and I think it definitely does show here. So back in the present, Meg then goes to see John, and he tells her all about the tape and why he can't drop out, and I will say, one of the best scenes in the episode, definitely. I mean, Linda Cardellini and Kyle Chandler both really sold it here. You could really tell just how devastating this is for them, because they're really trying to do whatever they can to not ruin their family name, and the thinking being that if he could just become sheriff, he could shut this whole thing down. That might be the best thing to do, that he could be the one to close the case, because Aguirre is not doing it for them. He could be the one to do it, and she's rightfully pissed and slaps him. She says that he should have told them that, giving another possible, that he should have just told them, that he should have told them what's going on, and yeah, he should have. I mean, the best thing to do would have been to tell them, because he didn't tell them what's going on, and I'm glad that he did tell Meg what's going on, that the tape, of everything that's going on there, and that's why he can't drop out, because he really wants to be able to shut this whole thing down, and I like the way that was done. So, I thought that was definitely a really great scene, one of the highlights of the episode for me, and everything with Meg and John I thought was really great here. So, Belle then comes by the boatyard. Interestingly, he does not tell Kevin that the doctor asked her to run a few more tests. He tells her how much Nolan looks and acts like Danny, and Belle suggests inviting him to dinner, because basically, he acts like Danny. The best thing to do probably would be to connect with this kid, because they want to, and Kevin's asking if it should be at their house. And then he remembers he's a man living on thin ice, and he agrees that, basically he has to listen to Belle's suggestion. She really does not trust her husband right now, and you can tell that she's really trying to give him a second chance. It's very hard to do so, but I think she's definitely trying to do that, and you definitely do see that here. So I do like that Kevin and Nolan are trying to bond. I do like seeing that, and I like seeing that Nolan, as the season goes on, he's really not a bad guy. He's just a kid. He really does miss his father, and he wants to have some sort of a role in the Rayburns' life. And honestly, all this stuff me saying, oh, Nolan's a shady dude, I don't really think he is anymore. I think he, honestly, it is making sense. He's a teenager. I think that's really who we see he is, and I definitely did like seeing that here. So Meg and John go see Roy Gilbert because they really want to see if he's going to be able to help him. And basically, first of all, Roy Gilbert is played by Beau Bridges, who it is awesome to see Beau Bridges in this show. He really killed it, and he's gravelly and rich, and he apparently has some history with Roberts. And Meg goes honest with him and tells him that she's running John's campaign because no one else would have them, and she's going to be John's campaign manager. And she asks for his endorsement as they are way behind, and this really does give Meg something to do. Now that she doesn't have a job, now she can be his campaign manager. I don't think she told John she lost her job. I don't believe she told him that, but she does need to obviously move on. The best thing to do is for her to become his campaign manager. So eventually I think they are going to have the conversation of her getting fired. Didn't happen yet, but it is going to happen. And Marco then brings in Eric for questioning because obviously he doesn't really trust Eric right now, and I like the way that Marco is kind of doing this on his own because there's a lot of things that he just doesn't believe, and there are a lot of things that just don't seem believable to him, and he's kind of doing a lot of this investigating on his own. They have this little chat, of course, which what ends up happening is that Marco gives more information to Eric, like about all the drugs in Miami. Then Eric gets back. Eric stays pretty chill, but the wheels in his mind are clearly turning because he knows that something is definitely going on. He knows that he definitely is not, the cause of Danny's death. He knows that there's definitely more going on there, and we see what he remembers, which is that he was with Danny right up until John shows up to murder Danny, and it's really sad, honestly. And even though, Eric is a really sleazy guy and he's kind of a dick, I really did feel bad for him in this scene because really he just misses his friend, and he wants to see his friend again. He remembers, he wishes his friend was back in his life, and the fact that he was the last person to see Danny before he was, not unintendedly murdered, is just horrifying, not horrifying, but just really sad to think about. I really did feel bad for Eric, and as much as I don't like Eric's character, I like the way it was done here. I think they definitely got us to care, and I definitely really did enjoy that. So Evangeline is sitting at the bar. She meets Meg. She gets in Meg's head from the very start, telling Meg things like how Danny was proud of her for going to law school and dropping hints that she knows much more about the Rayburn family dynamics than any of them would like her to know. Now, why? Because she obviously knew Danny, and Danny probably told her a lot of shit that was going on. But basically, we can tell, again, she's there for money, and it comes down to the money. Robert promised her money and to put Nolan in the will, and now Sally isn't honoring it. And because of that, she's going to go to Meg. Now, even though Evangeline's coming across as kind of, nice right now and not so bad. Like I said, I think she definitely is going to have a personal grudge against this family. Meg can give it to them, and Meg is saying that this is a bad one because there's no mention of her in the will, and Evangeline looks genuinely stunned to hear that there's nothing about her in this will, because clearly, and this looked very genuine, like this didn't seem like she was acting out. It seemed very genuine. It seemed like she's very surprised that Danny didn't put her in this will, because it seemed like out of everything, she would be in that will. I mean, it kind of makes sense. She's obviously, the mother of his son. It would make sense. But for whatever reason, she's not in this will, and she's freaking out by that fact that she's not in this will. And I think it's really interesting that Danny didn't put her in this will, because you would have thought he did, but he didn't, and I think that's definitely interesting. So just walking through the parking lot when Ozzy drives up and makes pretend that he can't figure out where to stay for the night. You can tell, obviously, that Ozzy's trying to get information on the Rayburns. Basically, I think what he's basically trying to do is to observe them, see if they're anything like Danny, and see if they really are capable of, taking care of Nolan, because in his mind, they're not. And John's friendly enough, so he goes to a few hotels. He does give a car a second look, but it was the same one that Danny had, basically. Because I think you can tell. John can tell that, obviously, he has Danny's old car. Now, it's really weird that Ozzy does have Danny's old car, but I think that is kind of also showing that's how he's dealing with the grief, is by using Danny's old car. It's like a part of Danny is there. It's creepy, obviously, that he's literally using Danny's old car, but I think it's mainly because of the fact that he wants to pretend that Danny's still there when really he's not. So Nolan and Kevin continue to have some sort of friction, though Kevin is saying that he's coming to dinner because Belle says so. Nolan seems to have the same ability to root out people's vulnerabilities, and immediately gets Kevin's goat about a crack about what kind of a father Kevin will be. And obviously, that really affects Kevin because he's thinking about the downward spiral he's going on. And remember, Belle's pregnant, and she's going to be having a kid. And I think the reason she's not bringing this up to Kevin is because she doesn't want to have to affect him. And Nolan literally brought this up for him. I don't think Nolan's just trying to hurt Kevin. I think he's genuinely saying this because I think he's just, thinking this is true. I mean, if this is how he's going to treat Nolan, how is he going to treat his kid? And then we get to probably one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the episode, and the season in general, where Danny is teaching Nolan how to cut vegetables, and it's Danny as we hardly see him. He's sweet and encouraging, and we see Nolan actually really enjoying it, and Danny tells Nolan he isn't going anywhere. Nolan's having it that sense makes him, and it's really sad because you see these two, they were starting to connect. Danny definitely did try, even if it didn't exactly work, he definitely did try to make a life for him and his son, and it's just really sad about what had to happen because I really do think these two could have had a good relationship, but of course Danny died, and any, part of that good relationship they could have had is completely, it's gone now, so, it's completely tarnished, and it really sucks. So back to the present, Meg looks at Robert's will and tells Sally that Evangeline might have a case, and Sally's drinking and babbling about Bungalow 3 still, and I don't give a fuck about what's going on there. Like I said, I don't care about the bungalow. Meg looks concerned. She finally tells Meg simply that she wants Eve and, she wants Evangeline Nolan gone. She wants them gone. She doesn't want them there, and it makes sense. Obviously, they're just causing problems, and Meg feels the crushing loneliness of being the last sane member of her family because really everyone else seems to be slowly losing it, and Meg seems to be the one that's kind of, she's kind of content with herself. I don't think that she's all the way okay, but out of everyone, she is the only one that's not having a major breakdown. Everyone seems to be. Even John, even though he's not really showing it, he's clearly having a major breakdown, and Meg is really the only one that's not. And, if Meg really ends up becoming the head of this family and the one that kind of gets everyone and the kind of like the voice of reason, I think it's a very good role for Meg to assume because she would be very good at it. She's not losing it, and she really does have it together, and how she has it together, I don't really know. But I think, again, it's been because she's had that safety net, and the other characters haven't had that safety net, and she has. But I do think as this season goes on, she's going to slowly start to lose sense of herself. Definitely that's going to happen. I don't think this is going to be, a permanent thing where Meg's going to be the only same member. I think very slowly she's going to start to lose faith in herself, and I definitely think very soon that's about to happen. So John then calls Marco about bringing in Eric, and Marco talks about how he was just and John accuses him of being a pawn in the race for sheriff, and it gets tense before John is all, saying don't let the door hit you on the way out, and I get that John was coming across as an asshole here, but it makes sense, obviously. He wanted to cover his own family's ass. He wants to be the one to make decisions. He doesn't want Marco to have to do any of this because, it'll seem like Marco's scheming against John. What I think is that Marco thinks that there's something that John's hiding, and he is going to continue this investigation regardless. He can tell that definitely there's more going on. He knows that definitely something is going on there, and he definitely, I think, is destined to find out what exactly John is hiding, because he knows he's hiding something. I don't think he knows exactly what he's hiding, but I think he knows he's hiding something, and he wants to know exactly what he's hiding. So I thought that was really interesting. Everything continues to wander adrift to his time, this time to his sister's house, and she's saying it's time to go. She wants no part of what's up, and Eric really does seem to be at a loss of what the hell is going on. He's asking questions, though, like about the last time Chelsea heard from Danny. He's surprised when she says he texted her about taking the car, and quite rightly says there's no way that Danny ever texted. And really interesting, the fact that she said that. I mean, I get that she's saying, look, Danny's gone, you need to understand that, but Eric is slowly starting to lose himself. He really wants to believe that Danny's still there, when obviously we know he's not, and it's sad, but I just don't really know why we still have Chelsea and Eric in the story. I get that they're here, but they're just not really doing much right now. I get that Eric is obviously supposed to be a suspect, and I like that we did see stuff with Eric, but Chelsea really is not doing much for me this season. I hope we do see more for them to do rather than just brood over Danny, because while it's sad, I kind of do want to see them do a little bit more than just that. So Kevin can't do with his life or his sobriety. He takes a swig of tequila at work, and even though he said he's going to get help, he's taking tequila, and Nolan saw the whole thing, and obviously, I think Nolan really is starting to see how bad of shape Kevin really is. So Megan gets a visit from Gilbert, who tells her there's no way that John will win. She needs to fight dirty, and she's saying, it's not John's style that she does that, and Roy tells her, and, Gilbert tells her that might be true, but she needs to be the one to get her hands dirty, and Gilbert says something intriguing about how John is not the most like Robert, and yeah, I mean, he's the one that's not like Robert at all, because Robert, he really did fight dirty. John doesn't fight dirty, and he really, again, he's keeping that death to himself. He's very composed, and I would say, I'd say that John is very much like Robert, in the sense that Robert is a very calm figure. John's a very calm figure. He doesn't freak out a lot, which is kind of why it's scary when he does freak out so much, because he doesn't freak out a lot, and John does, and you definitely do see that there, and I really did enjoy that. But I like that Meg, is trying to tell him, look, he knows what he's doing, but Gilbert clearly is telling her to get more involved. I'm wondering if Meg is going to get a little bit more involved, because she is very good with being cutthroat and things like that and getting very straight to the point. While John doesn't really do a lot, Meg does do a good job with that, and I definitely think we're headed there. So John is out with Janie when Ozzy continues to show up and mess with him, this time by letting John know in the creepiest of ways that he's on to John, naming the Red Reef Inn in the room number that Danny stayed in, and you can just tell that obviously Ozzy we can't trust, and Ozzy sort of saunters away. We see Sally then gets yelled at again about the damn shower in Bungalow 3, and this guy's saying that they're out, and she goes there to see it herself, gets it working, starts laughing hysterically, which quickly turns into sobs, and I get that obviously this is her way of grieving over Danny, but I just don't care. I really didn't care about the shower. I didn't care about the problems that was going on here. I thought it was kind of silly. I honestly was laughing at not laughing, but just the way the scene was done. I think Sissy Spacek deserves a lot more than this, and I thought it was really dumb that most of her plot involved with the shower. I just didn't really care, unfortunately. So Marco then shows up at Meg's, and obviously they had that really weird confrontation, in the last episode, and he tells her he may need her to come in to keep talking about Danny's case. She stares at him, he stares at her, and she invites him in, but he says no. She apologized for her behavior the other night. He's saying, please never again, don't even talk about it. He clearly wants to keep things focused on this case. He doesn't want to go into personal stuff. He just wants to know, and he feels like she might be the one to go to. So now it's time for dinner at Belle and Kevin's. Nolan is being a bit surly, and sure makes it as if he's going to out Kevin for drinking at work, because obviously, he kind of seems like he's out to get Kevin, and it's very tense so that Belle doesn't know why, but when Nolan tells him that he knows that, he reminds her of Danny, and it sucks, he believes him. That's, you can tell, that he's not wrong. He's definitely not wrong. And I know he says, I know I remind you of my dad and it sucks, but he's really not like his dad. He's really not. I actually really do like Nolan. I like where they're going with him. And to me, it seems like Nolan really wants to help Kevin, because Kevin doesn't really feel like he wants this help, and Nolan does kind of want to tell him, look, you really do need to turn yourself around. I think Nolan really doesn't want Kevin to turn out like Danny. I think that's really what it is. Nolan knows how bad of shape Danny was, and he doesn't want Kevin to turn out just like him, and I like the way that's going. And notice notice that Nolan isn't trying to ruin Kevin. I think he's really there to help turn him around. I definitely do like seeing. We also see his heart continue to be broken by Danny, like when they left the restaurant as chums and ran smack into a shady character who hits Danny across the face. And it's sad because, like I said in that scene, we saw that they were trying to bond. It didn't really work at all because of what Danny's life was like. Meg then sits around, drinks more of her bottle of red wine, then calls Gilbert. She meets him. Her hands her an envelope full of secrets about the Aguirre family, and we don't know what that's about, but clearly this guy, there's more to him than meets the eye. We don't know what it's about, but definitely there's more that's going on there. Ozzy and Eric then chat. It's clear that Ozzy really does have great intuition, as he's sure now that it is not all pure in the House of Rayburn, that John isn't the Boy Scout that Eric says he is. So clearly he definitely knows more what's going on here. He knows he can't trust the Rayburns, and I definitely think he is out to get the Rayburns. Ozzy definitely is the villain of this season, and I cannot wait to see what else he does, because John Leguizamo is killing it, and I've known he does a great job playing these sort of sleazy characters. I mean, look at him in John Wick, he's amazing there, but here he really is doing a great job, really liking his character, and John's been trying to figure out who Ozzy really is, and he's back in the room with a critical point. John now telling him a killer was coming home, and Danny knowing that John was right, and when Danny happened, John is realizing exactly who Ozzy is, and I think just through this scene, he puts it together that he cannot trust Ozzy, that Ozzy is in fact the one that was out to get Danny, and that is the way this episode ends. Overall, really good stuff, but let's just get in this episode. So like I said, a bit of a messy episode. There's a lot of stuff going on here. The Sally stuff I really did not care for. I mean, I did like what's going on with Evangeline, but Sally in general, I just didn't really care for. I really am loving here what's going on with John, though. The fact that John wants to be, sheriff. He thinks being sheriff is the best thing to do. That if he's sheriff, he'll be able to end this case for good. But Meg, of course, doesn't really think he's going to win. She thinks that she needs to be involved herself, and I feel like she could do that. What's going to happen with that? And also, Gilbert, there's definitely more going on with him. We don't really know what it is about Gilbert, but there definitely is something about him that I just don't trust, and I don't know what it is right now, but something about this guy I just don't trust, and we'll have to see what's going on there. Bo Burgess is killing it. I just don't really know what it is about him that I don't trust. I just don't trust him. Ozzy is clearly trying to ruin the Rayburns. He's going after them. He doesn't trust them whatsoever, and now I'm looking forward to seeing really what's going to happen with that, because Ozzy is an awesome character. I'm really loving what they're doing with him. Evangeline, we can tell, is desperate. She wants money. She wants to get the money, and it makes sense why she wants money. Obviously, she was a part of Danny's life. He didn't include her in the will. They need to get her the money somehow, and I feel like Meg is going to try to get her that money, so she's obviously, she can leave them alone, because obviously she's really, stressing them out right now, and the best thing to do is to get her to leave them alone, and the best way to do that is to get her the money that she needs. So we'll see how that goes, because that's going to be really interesting. As far as Nolan goes, I do like seeing his bonding with Kevin. You can tell that, obviously, I think he knows what Danny went through, and he wants Kevin to turn himself around, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. Not much with Diana here. I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get a lot with Diana, because I do like seeing Diana know kind of what's going on with John. She can definitely tell there's something going on with him. She definitely does not trust him, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to, is seeing her have the conversation with him. I want to see in this episode, but we didn't get it, unfortunately. I feel like it's coming, but we just didn't get it yet. And as far as Marco goes, Marco, I think, knows there's something going on. He knows there's something going on. He knows there's more of the case, and I feel like he's going to continue to work at it, despite John telling him, I have it handled, because he knows that definitely there's more going on. John's being very secretive, and I think he definitely has suspicions that something's going on. Now, what exactly it is, I don't know. I honestly did kind of feel bad for Eric, just knowing that he lost his, his best friend. I did feel really bad for him because of that. But overall, guys, how much you guys saw this episode? I don't think this was nearly as good as the last episode, or even nearly as good as episode 3, but I did think it was overall a pretty good episode. A bit messy, like I said. It introduced a lot of new things, but like I do think this is basically the beginning of the season. There's a lot of stuff going on now. I cannot wait, and we are at the half point of the season. I can't wait for the last 5 episodes this season. Let me know if you guys saw this episode, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for either episode 6 of Bloodline, or it'll be for episode 2 of Outcast, because I am going to review that show. I'm still reviewing it, and I meant to review it on Friday, just to get a chance to, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.